What's going on, guys? It's Seth back with another Defense Wins Fantasy, part of the Fantasy Holics Podcast Network. We are in the month of the draft. We are getting draft ready. And the teams are out there getting draft ready as well. The Detroit Lions decide to move on for former third overall pick Jeff Okudah at the cornerback spot. And they get a fifth-round pick back from Atlanta. Not exactly what you want when you draft a guy top three. He's been injured, I get it. He actually started to play a little bit better last year. But man, that's a tough rap for the Lions to give up that kind of draft capital just a few years ago and end up saying, we'll just get the money off the books. He was owed $10 million coming into this year. And Atlanta, good for them. They get a guy across from A.J. Terrell. That means that they don't have to draft a corner that high. It means that the Lions might be drafting a corner at 6, probably more likely at 18. But, man, it's not often that you see that high caliber player, at least draft capital-wise, get moved for that little draft capital back. But it just didn't seem to work out in Detroit. Maybe it will in Atlanta. Now, as we're talking about fantasy football, what does that mean for Jeff Okudah's fantasy value? He was middle of the road, not even a startable asset last year. I think he does gain a little bit of value, and that's more so due to the respect of A.J. Terrell rather than Jeff Okudah. They're going to throw to his side a little bit more often. Maybe he finally picks it up and starts getting some interceptions, getting some defensive passes, getting some tackles. But it's not really moving the bar on me. I'm not going out making any moves. I'm not quickly picking him up. I don't think he's going to end as a top 30 cornerback. I don't think he's going to end in a top 40 safety cornerback, just D-back in general. So it's newsworthy more on the NFL front, not necessarily on the fantasy front. But I did say that the draft's coming up, and that's what I want to talk about tonight. We're going to break down my top 5 linebackers pre-draft, before we know where they're landing at, but we're going to talk about where I think the best landing spot for them will be. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and kick it off with my number 1 linebacker coming into this NFL draft. Now, I've been a big-time proponent of one of the linebackers specifically in this class. That being said, Drew Sanders is my number 1 linebacker. I know. I've talked a lot about Jack Campbell, but when push comes to shove, 6'4", 235-pound Drew Sanders out of Arkansas has got the goods to be the best linebacker IDP-wise coming out of this class. He had 103 tackles for Arkansas last year after transferring from Alabama, 9.5 sacks and a pick. He ran a 4.59 40 at a 37-inch vert, so he's got the explosiveness, he's got the speed. You watch this kid's tape, and he is just so quick, so aggressive, and he can just turn it on immediately. He knows when he sees ball, he hits ball. It's just go, go, go. The big thing with him is, well, where's been the consistency? He's only had one big year. Yeah, he transferred from Alabama last year and played 1 year at Arkansas. What did they do? They moved him from an edge/outside linebacker to a middle linebacker, zone nickel linebacker. They left him on the field, put him in the middle of the field, had him run that Arkansas defense, and it was a game changer for him. You saw his pass rush ability. He had 9.5 sacks from the interior linebacker spot. You saw his coverage ability. You saw his ability to break down the tackles. He had some massive hits on his game tape. It was so impressive how much he can lay the lumber. And honestly, when you watch Drew Sanders versus watching Jack Campbell's tape, Sanders looks a lot smaller. I was honestly surprised when I looked back and realized that he was actually 6'4", 235 pounds. Because he plays so quick, you'd think that he's a lot smaller out there. He's so versatile. He could play that kind of Micah Parsons role. That's what I feel like at the next level, at the NFL level, that they're gonna try to emulate, is having him all over the field, coming up and playing some edge, playing that linebacker. Now, I will say that if he does go full Micah Parsons, that does hinder his ability as a linebacker when it comes to fantasy. But hopefully, if that's what happens, he's D-line eligible, and you can get a lot of fantasy points out of him that way. He's just a big dude, and he plays so fast. I tell you what, you just can't see it unless you watch the tape. When he realizes that the quarterback's rolling out and he breaks on the quarterback for the sack, the quarterback doesn't even have time to realize what's happened. When he sees the handoff happen, he's in the backfield. He's hitting the guy. Drew Sanders just has, it seems like, an extra gear that the rest of the guys in this class does not, especially with the overall skill level that he has. So where do I think the best landing spot for Drew Sanders would be? It's tough, but I think that if he goes to the Detroit Lions, that would be an absolute ideal spot for him. Now, Detroit currently has Malcolm Rodriguez, who was unimpressive in his rookie year, and Alex Anzalone. Now, they did re-sign Alex Anzalone to a 3-year deal. Why? I don't know. But if they're able to get their hands on Drew Sanders, then that is going to be a game changer for that defense. You put him with the rest of that defense, and assuming that they pick up some more defensive guys in the first round, if they somehow are able to get Drew Sanders in the second round or maybe trade back their first-round pick, I think that taking Drew Sanders at 18 is a little high, but we're talking about just best landing spot for me. I think that if he goes to the Lions, he runs that defense, him and Hutch will just dominate this defense for years to come. And you get a guy in the middle of that field that can tackle, that can cover, that can rush the passer, and you get to come from multiple different directions with this defense. Dan Campbell would be so excited to get a guy like this. He's a great locker room guy too. So it's just one of those teams. It would be really, really good if he goes there. Will he? I'm not sure. Probably not. But we're talking best landing spot. We got some time. Maybe they'll figure something out and get him in the building. And maybe they will take him at 18 if they feel like that's a need they need that badly. But we'll see. My number 2 linebacker is, in fact, Jack Campbell. Coming out of Iowa, this guy's 6'5", 249 pounds. Couldn't get that extra pound at the combine. Maybe should have stopped and got a couple more shrimp cocktails from St. Elmo's. That might have put him over the top there. But 4'6", 40. He had 125 tackles, 1 sack, and 2 picks this last year. 140 tackles the year before. So this dude knows how to get to the ball. He's got a nose for the football. He's going to come up in run defense. He's going to punish the running back. This dude's big, and he plays big. He's just an angry man out there. I mean, it's just, you look like a kind of guy that if they didn't have helmets, he'd be just fine out there. He moves quick for his size, but at times when you're watching the film, it seems like he isn't moving that fast when he actually is, probably because of the longer strides. That was one of the things that I talked about before the combine with him, is I wanted to see how he ran. His agility skills were 99th percentile. His ability to run a 4.65 40 at his size and weight is extremely impressive. His explosiveness coming in that first 10-yard split was with the best of them. And he plays a lot of coverage when you're watching his film. So he's not a guy that's just a thumper that's going to be in there for 2 downs. He is dropping into coverage a lot, and he does it surprisingly well for how big he is. He stays in his lanes when he has the assignments for running plays and for zone plays. He goes where he needs to go. This is the kind of guy that's going to be loved by his coaching staff. His attention to detail and his situational awareness will make him a mainstay on an NFL roster. His size and his ability to get after the running backs, get after the quarterbacks, and play in coverage is something that you normally don't see at that kind of, size and weight. So where should he go? This one I feel like is the worst kept secret. I mean, the ideal spot for Jack Campbell to go to is the Buffalo Bills. I mean, they let Tremaine Edmonds go in free agency to go sign a ridiculously lot of money, just what, $70 million, $50 million guaranteed with Chicago. So just slide Jack Campbell right into that spot next to Milano, and you have another two very solid linebackers. And he gets to learn a lot from Matt Milano playing next to him. He gets to take over that thumper role with better coverage than Tremaine Edmonds is. I love that fit. It could make sense at the back half of the first round. It could make sense if the linebackers start to fall a little bit and go into the second round. But Jack Campbell, to me, is the guy that's just going to make your defense more angry. And it's going to be one of those guys that the quarterback's going to be looking at while he plays that middle linebacker spot, because he's 6'5", looking over all of these linemen, and it's just going to strike some fear in some of these guys. We're going to start having Sam Darnold see ghosts even if he's on the bench. So that brings me to my third-ranked linebacker. This is the 6'3", 230-pound, 4.43 40 running Trenton Simpson out of Clemson. This dude has wheels. I mean, 4'43" at 230 pounds is just darn impressive. You really got to watch his film and to see how quickly he gets off the ball. His timing is really impeccable when it comes to snap counts. And he was a sack master his sophomore year. What I'm concerned about is the amount of regression he had going into 2022. When he moved into more of a traditional linebacker role, he lost all the sack ability. He just didn't seem like he was a good fit in that spot. He's not a one-size-fits-all kind of guy. He's very unique. Like I said, a little bit smaller than Drew Sanders and Jack Campbell, but not small by any means. He's much better an outside linebacker / pass rush specialist. He doesn't seem to do well when he gets clogged up in the middle. It's a lot like how Isaiah Simmons has played in his NFL career. But coming out of college, Isaiah Simmons was a way better prospect than Trenton Simpson. Same school, same kind of role that they played there. Now, Trenton Simpson, once again, he has great range and coverage. He can get after the quarterback. He can get back in coverage. The one thing that I kind of am concerned about is when watching his film, a lot of his sacks came from really good timing when the ball was hiked, coming unblocked, no defenders getting a hand on him, or they're coming from delayed blitzes where the quarterback held onto the ball way too long. And again, he wasn't getting blocked because they weren't accounting for him as a blitzer. He would come delayed or peel off his man in coverage and try to get the quarterback. He's got to get better at pass rush moves if he's going to be an NFL caliber pass rusher, in my opinion. I think that he needs to go somewhere that's going to have some seasoned veterans in that role that can help work that ability out of him. And that's why I think his best fit is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that with having, some of the old guard there with Shaquille Barrett and Levante David even, to be able to kind of really coach him into being a linebacker and what it means. I mean, even Devin White has a decent amount of blitzing ability for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But you put him on the outside and in some situational his rookie year, and he could end up being a guy to watch. This is also the guy that I'm most concerned about landing spot, because if he goes to somewhere that doesn't know how to utilize a guy like him, he might just get lost in the shuffle and won't be IDP valuable at all. So I'm very, very concerned about him. He is the one where he could completely drop out of my top 5 depending on landing spot. That's not going to happen with Drew Sanders or Jack Campbell. Fourth guy on my list is Henry To'oTo'o. And this is a guy out of Alabama, 6'2", 228 pounds, ran a 4.62 40. Here's the thing about him. I feel like he's getting not necessarily hate from this draft. I feel like he's just like not exciting, right? So nobody's really talking about him. And that's fair because he isn't exciting. He's just a solid tackler that shows a lot of flashes of wow factors, but not enough to make you like really, really sold on this guy. But he will be a solid middle linebacker, whether that's in a 4-3 or a 3-4 defense. I think 3-4 would be best for him, with him being 6'2", 220, 230-ish. I think that he could have somebody else playing next to him. It really can solidify him as just knowing his role and taking care of business. But he's very instinctive. He's got good quick twitch, and when it comes to reacting to quick passing routes, he's phenomenal. The screens, the short slants, all those things. He knows where to be, and he gets there in a hurry. Now, I definitely think that he's a day two kind of guy, so I'm not going to be investing a lot of draft capital in him. But again, I do think that this is a guy that is going to see a path to get into the field because he seems like the type that just comes in, day out, is consistent, and is going to take care of business, and the coaches are going to like that. They're going to be able to trust Henry To'oTo'o when they put him on the field. And what better team to go to and play a middle linebacker than for the Pittsburgh Steelers? I think that's the best fit for them. They lost Bush on the offseason. They have the opportunity to really just revitalize this defense, continuing along that. Yeah, they brought in Elandon Roberts and Cole Holcomb after losing their two middle linebackers. Both those guys are temporary stays. Elandon Roberts is a thumper, but he's not great in coverage. Cole Holcomb is a solid linebacker, but he's at the end of his career and just kind of a guy. They didn't sign him for a lot of money. They're not super invested in him. So I think he's a safety net, and if they can get their guy, they're going to draft him. But I think that if Henry goes to the Steelers, that's going to be the ideal landing spot for him. A defensive-minded team that's going to get the absolute best out of him. The final player on my top 5 is one that arguably probably isn't in a lot of people's top 5. It's a guy that I just think he just shows out when you watch his tape. And that guy is Deion Henley from Washington State. He's 6'1", he's 225, and he ran a 4.54 40-yard dash. This is a guy, when you watch his tape, is what you really appreciate it. He's very instinctive. He sees, he goes. He sees, he goes. It's very, very fast. He sees the handoff, he's there. He knows where these guys are going. He knows which hole they're trying to hit, and he meets them there. He's very comfortable in zone coverage, and this guy just plays with fire. You can tell he just wants to win. He cares. He wants to win the war out there. He's willing to put his body on the line to try to win that war. And that size issue is sincere. It makes him a little bit of a tweener. I don't know exactly where he's going to play. Outside linebacker with the size would make more sense, but I just think he's better at the inside. If he goes to a team that plays primarily 4-3, I'll feel better about it. He can play that outside linebacker in a 4-3, I think, extremely well. But he has too much explosiveness to just ignore the ability to just get him on the field. He creates too much havoc, and you can tell that this dude does film study. He knows where these offensive guys are going before they even start moving. You can just tell that he's read his playbook. He's watched the film. He studies up. And that's the part that you don't really know how they're going to react when they get to the NFL. How are these guys going to sit in the classroom? Yeah, they're all professional athletes. They're all extremely athletic, 99 percentile and all that crap. But between the ears still matters. And knowing where the ball is going to be and getting there matters in fantasy too. You're going to have more opportunities for tackles if you know where the ball is going to be. I just love watching this guy play. He's probably at best a day 2 guy if he sneaks into the 3rd round. Most likely a day 3 guy. But man, I just want him to do well. I wish the best for him. He just is a lot of fun to watch. Now, originally, my best fit for him was the 49ers. They lost Al-Shaair in the offseason, and he could be a nice guy that kind of fills that role. But the more I thought about it I think I'd much rather see him with the New York Jets. They got Robert Saleh, former defensive coordinator of the 49ers. They've got Quincy Williams that they just re-signed to a modest contract. They got C.J. Mosley, who's 31 years old and is coming to the end of his monster deal. Deion Henley could step into that C.J. Mosley role. I think I'd rather see him as the outside linebacker again, but he plays with that kind of fire and that kind of passion that he could lead that defense from the inside out. And that defense is so stacked on the D line and the other the secondary is getting better. I think that they can just absolutely use this kind of fire and his explosiveness. And if I'm right about how I feel he's preparing for these games, Henley could be a guy as early as his second year becoming a full-time starter on this defense and just dominating out there. Again, all hearsay. Everything's going to change in a few weeks when none of these guys get drafted to where I think they should go. But at the end of the day, we have to start looking at the tape. We have to understand how these guys play. And if they get picked to a team that we feel the role doesn't really mesh, maybe we drop them down a little bit. But time will come when the start of the season on whether we're right, whether we're wrong. But we're going to have to make decisions before then. So right now, these are your top 5 linebackers. And we will just have to wait and see where the NFL ranks them. So until next time, guys, remember that defense wins fantasy. We'll see you next week.